Hi. 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 Sorry, I got stuck. Hi, I'm Lyman, and I am here with my good friend Marcel, and together we are presenting you the Jazz and Grass and Other Stuff 2 podcast.
Yay! Oh, man. Really not that exciting, but I hope you're excited to be here anyway. I hope you're ready to be underwhelmed.
Mm-hmm. I always imagine the music going off, like, you know, the music you're hearing now is probably fading out, like right here. I don't know. I always imagine it, but it never happens when we actually record the podcast. I do that in post with some editing magic.
Yeah, can I like give a message to like future Lyman? Like, can we bring the music back like a little bit right now? And then cut it off.
And we've done it. That's a podcast.
Yeah, anyway, folks, it's worth mentioning that if you're here and you don't know already, we do run the Jazz and Grass account on Instagram, which is a new guitar lick every single day. Me and Lyman post every weekday, and we go back and forth between bluegrass and jazz. I'm the grass side of things. He's the jazz side of things. And we don't post on the weekend because on the weekend we do this, man. A new one of these comes out every Sunday. Usually I'm here. Every once in a while I'm not here. Lyman has a better attendance record than me. He's been on every podcast.
I'm just waiting for the day I can pawn it off on you just once.
I'm going to do it with my sock puppets because I have no friends.
Yeah, we do the Instagram thing, and that's been going pretty good. We're about to hit 750 followers. I think the last time we updated you, we were about to hit 700. So it's still growing. There's still more. It hasn't gotten smaller yet.
Yay.
But if you would like to talk to us, ask us a question, or make some derogatory remarks, you can call or text our message hotline, the Jazz and Grass hotline, and you can reach that at area code 724-257-1046. That's area code 724-257-1046.
I still haven't called that, by the way. Did you is there a little message that tells you to leave a message?
Yeah, it's my dumb voice.
Your beautiful voice. Man, yeah. I should call that just to hear your voice. Speaking of that, do we have any messages on that thing, man?
Oh yeah, we got we actually have a couple questions. One from email and one from a texter from our Instagram account, actually. But let's get into that in a little bit. I want to hear about your trip to Asheville.
Oh yeah. So yeah, I mean the story is basically there's this guy named Mickey Abraham, and he plays with a band called Bell and the Band, and he writes all of the monthly tabs for Flat Picking Guitar magazine. And I've been following his tabs for a long time and all of his arrangements of tunes, and they're all wonderful and real kind of giving away secrets kind of stuff. And I found his YouTube account recently, and I left this real kind of creeper comment that was like, hey, what you talked about in this video is the same as like that tab that you released 5 years ago, is it not? And he messaged me back, and we ended up talking a bunch. We're Facebook official now, and he said I should come out and see him in Asheville. So I hadn't been to Asheville yet. We went out, and it's a super music town. It's actually a lot. It's super similar to like Bellingham, Washington. But yeah, I mean, we got to see a bunch of like great music. We got to go to a bunch of jams. I met some other people who have done some serious musician work. There's a guy named Drew who runs the jam at Jack of the Wood and at the Bywater, and he was the mandolin player for Billy Strings. If you're a bluegrass fan, I'm sure you know that name. So yeah, it was a really fun weekend, and it was fun to hang out with Mickey and his whole crew and everything. Sadly, I was not here for the podcast though.
Mm-hmm. That's why we had Mr. Miles last week. So, a couple questions regarding that. Is Billy Strings, is his actual last name Strings?
I don't know, actually. I assume it's some kind of joke. Actually, there's well, never mind. I won't even get into that. But yeah, I assume it's some kind of joke.
Every time I ask a question like that, I feel like Zach Galifianakis in The Hangover. Did Caesar really live here? And two, when I was watching the video, it did remind me of Bellingham like a tick. So I'm glad you acknowledged that.
Yeah, it's a super artsy town. Yeah, well, I guess I should have said that too. If you want to see the whole trip, you can watch it on my YouTube channel, Lessons with Marcel.
Yeah, I watched the vlog. He threw in one of my favorite jokes of all time at the end from a Vine star.
Yeah. Road work ahead. Yeah.
Which is why I sent you that video with no context.
That's wonderful.
I saw a sign that said tree work ahead, and I'm not sure if I hope that it does.
Something like that, though.
I actually took a trip recently as well.
Where'd you head off to?
I headed off to Flagstaff, Arizona.
I love Flagstaff.
Yeah, it reminded me a lot of Bellingham as well.
Yeah, super like college town.
Yeah, and like the downtown area with all the bricks and stuff, and there was a pita pit on the corner. I just felt like I was back home.
Like 20 kids doing parkour outside of a church. I don't know why. Flagstaff has so many just like kids like jumping off railings and stuff. I don't know what's up with that.
But I was doing a show in Flagstaff, and I didn't know what it was, what it was for. I'm the kind of guy, like, I just get called. I'm told what to play and like where to show up. And that's what I do. I don't think too hard about it, because if I think too hard, my head's going to hurt. But it turns out it was an opening for like a grand opening for like this new line of custom handcrafted guitars. The line is called Solstice Handcrafted Guitars. And the master luthier, who this is his brainchild, his name is Ryan R. Elawat. I think I'm saying that name right. I got to meet him. He was a super cool guy. He had one of his custom basses at the showroom type thing, and he let me play it the entire night, all 3 sets, and I could not put that thing down.
That's awesome.
The action was perfect. The tone was beautiful. It was kind of like it had one of those single humbucker, like at the bridge, like kind of Stingray style. And the entire first set, I was just trying to figure out what all the knobs did. So I got some weird sounds the first set, and then he told me it was a 3-band EQ. So I had bass, mid, treble, and that made everything easier. But that was super cool, like having 3 pots with the EQ, where the tone knobs would be, because that's pretty much how I think of tones, like the way you EQ the sound, and I like having more control rather than less control. So
what are you're sponsored by this guy now?
No, this is #not spawn. Like, I actually just really liked this guy's instruments. But let me read the quick little description of his new line of guitars. Solstice Guitars represents the culmination of a career dedicated to guitar luthiery. That's
You're killing it. Doing it.
This new line of instruments features a unique blend of modern and classic design work, the highest level of quality and craftsmanship, innovative building techniques, and new construction approaches. Solstice models are based on tradition and technology, with a focus on tone through innovation, playability, and individuality. And there's your reading out loud for the week. I apologize to everybody who just listened to that.
I love it, man. One of these weeks when I can't make it, you just got to read out of the dictionary or something.
Oh, that'll be terrible. But yeah, like he had a bunch of guitars. We were in like this kind of fancy bar, and he brought a bunch of guitars with him, the ones that he made, and he was letting people try them out, and they're super cool. So I highly recommend you check them out. His website is customsoundinstruments.com, and that's all one word, customsoundinstruments.com. And again, hashtag not spawn. Like, this is not paid for in any way.
I'm going there right now.
Yeah, like at least check out his guitars. It's my life goal to get one of his basses now, because I like the stuff he puts together.
He's got a nice website too. Yeah,
And
that's
if,
right. I'm just commenting on the quality of the website. Ooh, good looking website.
For those of you who don't know, Marcel also builds websites and is quite good at it.
Not for anyone, just in my spare time. I just make them. I set them free.
Tape up their wing a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, man. Yeah, well, those are great, actually. Once again, the website is
customsoundinstruments.com.
There you go.
Thanks for the nice little lob, and I fouled it off pretty good. Didn't even hit it in play, but I got a piece.
Yeah. It was like real wide right, and someone got to catch it. So, someone wins.
Baseball joke.
Anyway, man, I want to talk about what cup you're drinking out of today.
That's interesting because it's sort of a cup, as in it holds liquid, but it was sealed when I bought it.
You're drinking out of a can today.
Yeah, it's a NOS.
What's going on?
Today's going to be a really long day for me, so I need to perk up a little bit. I feel the NOS already kicking in.
That's good.
But I wanted to address why my wife doesn't let me use glass.
Instead of our normal what's Lyman drinking out of segment, instead we're gonna have Lyman talk more about why he only drinks out of plastic cups for children.
It's 100% for my own safety, and probably a little bit for her safety as well. It's not good to step on broken glass all of the time.
Sometimes maybe, but
I mean, clearly I'm a little bit of a moron because I break every single glass I touch. But using, deductive reasoning, that also means I'm a moron when I sweep up the broken glass, so I'm going to miss some for sure. So she's not being controlling or anything. I hate to say this, is actually a mutual decision that's good for the safety of both of us, that I can't drink out of glasses.
Oh, I love it. I love it so much.
And I can drop a cup, like a plastic cup, and it just spills water everywhere. It doesn't break stuff all the time, only sometimes.
Yeah, now you just need to get some of those lids that, like the sippy cups.
I don't want to go into sippy cup timeout. At least,
man, there's nothing
today.
better to drink your apple juice out of. You're going to be drinking apple juice, man. Get yourself a sippy cup.
Maybe some chocolate milk.
Yeah, totally. Well, I loved that story. I feel like we haven't talked enough music today, though.
Yeah, that's true.
What'd you do this morning, man? Segue.
I picked up a substitute teaching job at a rec center, teaching beginning guitar and beginning percussion. And this is my first foray into group lessons. So the students are teaching me more than I'm teaching them. But like, I enjoy teaching, but I'm having like some difficulties with like age differences and skill level differences and trying to balance, all the time and stuff. Like, okay, I'm going to spend 3 minutes with this group and then 3 minutes with you and then 2 minutes with you. And then, yeah, it's been challenging, interesting, and a lot of fun. And I think they're getting at least something out of it. They're probably going to be excited when the regular guy comes back in a little bit.
So what are you working on right now with them?
We have again, hashtag not spawn, Hal Leonard guitar book, like the complete guitar method. And there's no tab in it, which is awesome, I think. And so we're learning the notes on the first string, also known as the E string. And the notes on the B string right now. And
do they call them first and second string in the book?
Yeah. They use the numbered system.
I hate that. It's just a pet peeve of mine. You're gonna have to learn the note names anyway when you tune the thing. So just why do we gotta use numbers? Anyway, sorry.
I hated the number system for a long time, but it was like once I learned it, it was super useful, like for beginning students.
Yep.
Also, one thing I've noticed with beginners, they call this the top string and this the bottom string.
Yeah, I hate that. It's in relation to pitch, not in relation to like real world. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. This is facing the sky and this is facing the ground.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's one thing I've had to talk about a little bit. I also do I'm taking over for the dude's intro to music theory course, and I started like at very, very, very square one, like frequency and pitch, and the fact that this is 110 hertz, and when you tune your guitar, you're listening for phase cancellation. Hear that phase cancellation? Phase cancellation ASMR? Yeah, I figured like I didn't know where they were as far as what they'd learned about music theory, so I just went to absolute very, very beginning square one.
Yeah, you were like, let's talk about that wobbly sound.
But yeah, like one thing I noticed about the book is that the way it's set up and the melodies that it has them play, like it really sets them up well to play chords. Like just getting their left hand acclimated to playing sets you up for pretty nicely.
Yeah.
So the book to me is genius. But I've never really taught much out of a book before. I don't prefer to. But I'm changing my tune right now a little bit. I like those sort of building blocks that are built upon when you build up your building.
I think books work really well when you have a group, because there's you can continue to like hold hands with people, or people can kind of like read ahead and work a little bit harder. And that's what I always liked in band class. Like, my first year in like 6th grade or whatever. That helped me a lot because I knew that I could just read ahead and go on and do whatever I wanted and find like the challenging part in the back of the book. And, while every day in class, like continuing to go along as we progress through the book. I think that when you're doing one-on-one lessons, sometimes the book thing gets really tough. Unless the teacher's really using it like a tool and they're like flipping through to different parts and they're like assigning you whatever, right? They're not just following it step by step. And I've had teachers do both with me, and I really prefer when they know the subject matter and they're just whipping around in there to like give you what's relevant.
Yeah, I've always that's the only really lessons I've enjoyed is when I'm studying with a guy. We just have our instruments and we just sit and talk and play, and he tells me where I'm bad and how to fix it. But we'll get more on that building blocks thing a little bit later because we have a couple questions
we're doing
sent
questions
in by listeners and Instagram peoples. But Miles and I addressed this question last week a little bit, but I wanted to get your take on it, Marcel.
Yeah, sure.
So this question is from Peter, and he says,
What's up, Peter?
Yeah, what's up, dog? He says, I've been a bluegrass and jazz bass player for a long time now, but I'm trying to focus on guitar. As both of you made the transition, what did you find most helpful in learning how to think like a guitarist, and maybe some exercises to not just play walking bass lines when playing lead?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I bet I'm going to say the exact same thing everyone else said. I think it's really important to think of the instrument you're playing as that instrument. And if that means having to start over a little bit, that's the way to do it, right? Don't sometimes when you start a different instrument, you're tempted to say, well, I know this and I know that, and I play a little piano and I do this, and so when I play this instrument, I can convert all of that. And sometimes you don't want to do that because then you're just playing that instrument like you play all those other things. Really good example is when I initially switched from guitar and I started learning some mandolin. Mandolin is tuned with the E string being the highest string and then E, A, D, G. So it's like your four lowest strings on the guitar reversed and, upside down rather. And so when I started playing mandolin, I was like, oh, well, I can just flip everything upside down. And I started doing that, but then I was just playing mandolin like it was a guitar upside down, right? It didn't really have any mandolin characteristics. So yeah, I guess the advice I'd give is that you definitely look into what the guitar is capable of. So if you're switching from, like a bluegrass bass to like a bluegrass lead guitar, right, you're going to want to get away from all of that walking bass stuff probably, and you're going to want to spend a lot of time maybe on like your three highest strings, your G, B, and E strings, so that way you can kind of see how those scales fit. And of course, instead of playing quarter notes, you should get used to playing eighth notes and putting lines together in that way. But good luck to you.
Yeah, buddy. And I would say listen to last week's podcast, even though you probably already have, for my half of the answer, which is just start on all sorts of different chord tones and play diatonic and arpeggiated things to create lines. So that's the TLDR of my answer last week, if you don't want to listen.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to listen to you. That's just me, though.
And we've received a text message, our very first, besides the one that my wife sent to the account that said butts. So I guess this is a perfect time to respond to that. You have one, and so do I.
Yeah, man. Nice. Lots of people have one.
I think mine's broken, though. It has a crack in it.
You're such a dad. Then you say, hi, Dad, I'm Lyman, or something, right?
You got that Space Dad shirt.
Yeah, I do. Out of this world, Dad.
Out of this world, Dad. Uh, but this question is from Nicole, and I have no idea how to say her last name.
Yo, shout out to Nicole.
Her question reads, "Hey there, this is Nicole, something last name, from Mount Dora, Florida, and her Instagram handle is NEQUERME, and that's all one word. And her question is, wondering what scale you might use to improvise bluegrass with. There are more chromatic movements than in a normal blues scale. So is there another scale that has all of those blue chromatic runs you hear in bluegrass solos?"
Yeah, that's a really good question. Is that it? Is that all of it?
That's the question.
Well, I'm going to tell you what Lyman told me when I met Lyman. Lyman was playing some jazz stuff on my guitar. He had picked it up when we were at a band rehearsal or something. And I asked him that. I was like, hey, what scales are you using to play jazz? Like, and I'm sure I said some things about modes or whatever. And when I was done talking, Lyman was like, well, the scale I use most often is the chromatic scale. It's got all the notes. And I thought it was such a jerk thing to say. For a long time, I was like, man, Lyman's just a jerk. And then when I got better as an improviser, I was like, oh, I get what he was saying. You were saying in your own mean way, you were saying that it's probably not really about the scales, right? There's probably a better way to structure these things and put them together that relates more to like chord tones, what chords you're playing over, as opposed to just thinking that there's one scale and slamming away at it. I'm going to give you kind of a shorter version of a YouTube video that I made. It's called What Scales to Use for Bluegrass, I think is what the name of the video is. And I go really in depth about this, but there's a really simple concept when you're taking a genre and you're saying, what notes can I play over what chords? Because it's really what it's about. It's that you have to tailor what you're playing to every single chord as it passes by for you to feel like you're part of the song and not just randomly playing notes over it. So if you take every chord, for instance, if you take a G chord and you test all 12 chromatic notes on it, you're looking for the ones that sound consonant in a bluegrass way, right? So everything that you know about bluegrass has to work with your ear to find those notes. And the notes that you'll probably find are G, A, B, D, and E, which is good news because that's your G pentatonic scale. If you do that for your C chord, you'll find the exact same thing. You'll find C, D, E, G, and A, which is your C major pentatonic scale. If you try that for a chord like D7, you'll probably find your dominant pentatonic scale. Over D, that would be D, E, F sharp, what is that, A, and C. Mm-hmm. So instead of the sixth, we now have the dominant seventh. And those notes are going to tell you more about the chord than just one scale over the whole thing, right? These are collections of notes that will work over every chord as they move through. And if you want to think about it this way, it's basically that chord's major scale, but only a couple notes from it, 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6. And then in the case of the D7 chord, 1, 2, 3, 5, and the dominant 7. Now, when you put this together, if you just put it together like that, you'll end up with something that sounds really cheesy. It's not going to sound very musical. It's going to sound real kind of basic, a little childish probably. So you need vocab, you need context to add to that. What you add to it, most of the time, the initial things that get added are chromatic movements around the third, and I like to call that the dirty third, your flat third going up to your actual major third, and that can be extended to 2 flat 3 major third, which would be a slightly longer run. Those are probably some of the chromatic movements that you're hearing, Nicole. The other one that you're definitely hearing is a walk from the root down to the dominant seventh. So for instance, if you had root, then major 7, then flat 7, like over that D7 chord, you're probably hearing that chromatic movement too. And there's more. I mean, you could do more. And in bluegrass, sometimes they pepper in these chromatic runs a lot more, and you'll get this weird passage that's more dynamic. But those are probably the things that you're hearing the most. And that's probably the most inclusive way to think about how to solo in bluegrass. Because like I said when I started, there isn't one scale that will actually help you.
Mm-hmm. And I'm glad you took the brunt of this question, because I'm pretty ignorant when it comes to bluegrass, but I can talk a little bit about scales. I like to combine C major, and G flat pentatonic. And that actually gives you the chromatic scale. It gives you all 12 notes. But what I would do is I would, in a jazz setting at least, you got the diatonic chord scale. So all these things are in the key of C major, and then C major again. Look what notes from G flat pentatonic you could use over each one of those chords. So C major, you could use G flat or F sharp, and that's a consonant sound. Nice motion to the 5. You can use this note, A flat, as a passing tone. You can use E flat as a passing tone. Can't really use D flat unless you're doing something like a walk down from the 9. What other notes are there? B flat. Yeah, so I would encourage you to do that over all the chords in a key and see like where could I fit in notes from that G flat or F sharp pentatonic scale. Because the C major scale, it gives you 7 notes that are quote unquote in key. And the F sharp pentatonic scale, major pentatonic, I should add, is all of the other notes. It's the quote unquote black keys. So yeah, experiment, have fun. And I say that after every single thing I say. Experiment, have fun.
Yeah, that's good advice. I mean, you can take any, over any chord, you can take any weird note and then put yourself in a scenario where you have to justify it, which is, I think, really fun and super interesting to do. I guess you can purposefully paint yourself into a corner doing that live too. I mean, if you want to like really struggle in front of an audience, like put in some weird notes and then think your way out. And I love doing that live. I think that's super fun. I think, and I think the audience normally gets clued in on it too. Like, oh, he's really stepping outside that comfort zone, and he's trying to do all these, other things. Can he get out? And if you manage to not fail your way out of that, I love that.
We have just received another text message, like literally as we record this podcast, and I got excited for a second.
Oh, what is it?
That's my wife again. She texted butts again.
Man.
I'm not joking. You can check the email.
Yeah, I will.
So
love it.
Extra thank you to Peter and Nicole. We really appreciate you writing in, and we hope that more of you do. More of you would write in, and we can start a dialogue, have some fun, have some conversations. And
yeah, I love it.
To dear wife, if you're listening, I know you're probably not, but no more butts.
Oh, man. Well, anyway, man, look at this. We're like half an hour into this thing. We haven't even talked about our main subject for the day.
Yeah.
Why don't you take us in?
I think this is a pretty good segue because we want to talk about building blocks for beginning, intermediate, and advanced playing, like improvisation, technical facility, theoretical knowledge, like getting a good foundation and like placing small building blocks upon that foundation to grow and grow steadily.
Yeah, definitely. Also, we're marketing our own line of musical building blocks that have like sharps and flats and like repeat signs and other things. They're for kids. Also, they all have mine and Lyman's face just super big on them.
They're called Mew blocks.
Yeah.
Like Roblox, but
Oh, nice.
music. Meme?
Yeah, when are we coming out with the Jazz and Grass video game? Yeah, where's the tie-in?
Once I find a coder.
Yeah, all these ideas I got up here, they just need to come out. I just need a coder to make that Jazz and Grass video game.
So yeah, like I think if you're a beginning to intermediate guitar player, a super useful building block for you to know is E major scale. I'll take C for example. Cool, that's one position. I'll include a little bit of tab for this as well. Here's another position. And the first version of the scale included no shifts, and the second version included one shift. And there were varying notes per string. If you would like to get deeper into things you could do with the major scale, you could restrict yourself to 3 notes per string. So starting on F.
I actually really like that shape.
You can move. And do that all the way up and down, practicing your 3 note per string lines. And if you want to get super, super crazy, you can do 4 notes per string. So that gives you like 2.5 octaves with one scale position. It's little things like that. Like you may feel like you have a good grasp on the major scale, but there's all these things you can build upon when it comes to that.
Yeah, like part of learning and getting better is asking those questions. Like, hey, I can already do this in like one spot. Is that really good enough for me right now, or should I be able to do that everywhere, right? And that's almost one of the first things that I do with anything that I learn. Whenever I learn a new idea, I think to myself, all right, now I got to put this everywhere, right? There's no way I can live with just being able to do something in one spot. That would be a real bummer. I gotta get this thing out everywhere on my instrument to try to make sure I have as complete a knowledge set as I can get. Yeah, the major scale is a great example. It's cool to think about too with something like the major scale is that, our pentatonic scale, which you probably learned first because you're a guitar player, has 5 shapes, and it's got 5 notes in the scale, right? Because you start every shape from a note in the scale. Hashtag modes, hashtag not going there. And you can do the same thing with the major scale, right? Of course, which means that you would have 7 different shapes of your major scale if you did it that way. And that would give you a complete sense of the major scale on the neck. Something to think about. Do you know all 7 shapes for all the scales you know? Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, you could think of those as modes, but I don't. Like, you could think of a C major scale starting on D as D Dorian, but I just think of C major as D Dorian, E Phrygian, F Lydian, G Mixolydian, A minor. I'm not using the Greek word for that one, and B Locrian. It's good to know the modes so you can, figure out how to alter them. But all 7 of those scale positions on the neck, both 2 and 3 notes per string, and 4 notes per string, I just think of that as C major. And depending on what chord I am, it becomes Dorian or Mixolydian or minor.
Yep. So you just covered all the useful modes.
Yeah, or Lydian's pretty useful because you can
Yeah, that's true.
make some cool alterations like Lydian augmented and Lydian dominant.
I was just about to say, though, like when you play Lydian, though, everyone immediately changes it to like Lydian dominant. That's like what the conversation is about. It's not even about normal Lydian. I said we weren't going to talk about modes.
Hashtag I went there, sorry. Hashtag sorry, I'm actually sorry.
Yeah, make sure to get on Twitter and make sure all these hashtags start trending. Jazz and Grass takeover.
What's a building block you got?
Yeah, that's a good question. By the way, I think the major scale was a really good one too, because as guitar players, I feel like it's something that we don't learn until later, which is weird. Like guitar players tend to learn the pentatonic scale first before they learn the major scale, which is weird. I mean, it makes sense. It makes sense for our instrument. It's still weird. Yeah, I think a really good building block, or maybe, like a concept to get into your head, is that chords don't exist in one place. A lot of times when you're starting out, it feels that way. You learn a chord in one place and you're like, all right, that's a G chord. All right, that's a C chord. There's my E minor chord. And realizing that they exist in basically an infinite number of combinations. I mean, you could play the chords in so many different ways. And you could add so many other sounds to the chords too, is a huge thing to just open up your mind to. And I think that the first thing that it's going to help you with the most is you're not going to have those like fingers that have like lockjaw. Sometimes I teach these people and I say like, oh, like a lot of bluegrass people like do their G chord this way. You want to try that? And they like can't get their hand to like move into that new shape. Like they've been doing this one thing for so long that they can no longer just change chords. And I think that's crazy because I play my G chord like 20 different ways. And, they can't try just one different way. So make sure that stays fluid in your mind. You don't want to, like, let that concrete set or anything. So I guess the way that you would practice that, right, would actually be to, dare I say, learn your arpeggios and realize that any combinations of those can be new versions of the chord. And, I mean, it's it's something that could go on for forever. Those, like I said, those examples and those combinations. And even though they're all the same chord, they're going to have different feelings and stuff like that. So, I mean, that helped me so much.
What you're saying, actually, I can piggyback back off of that to my next point. Do you know your triads and their inversions? And do you know them, like, across all the string sets?
It sounds like a children's book. Do you know your triads?
Ominous foreshadowing. So let's just take the C major triad. I'm starting 8th fret E string, 7th fret A string, 5th fret D string. And you could also play that 8th fret E string, 7th fret A string, 10th fret A string. You could also play that 8th fret E string, 12th fret E string, 10th fret A string. Those are 3 different ways to voice your major triad. And any set that works off 2 strings, like 8, next string, 7, 10, you can use that on this set of strings, the E and the A and the D, the G, the D and the G, and the B and the E. But then we have a problem when we get here. The B string, the bane of all guitar players' existence. So
It's always out of tune too.
yeah. Because once you get it to sound like perfectly right, you're actually, 14 cents sharp?
Yeah, something like that.
Because of equal temperament. Another
Hashtag not going there.
Okay, I cannot go there today. But do you know all of your triads crossing the B string? Like, say, you have your C here on the 10th fret of the D string. 10D, 9G, 8B, 5G, 9G, 8B, 5G, 5E, 8B. Sorry, I'm having some trouble counting today. What fret am I on? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then there's another set that crosses the B string. The 5G, 5E, 5B, and 3E. And congratulations, you know the C major triad over a bunch of different string sets and different ways to play them. Do you know all your inversions? Isn't that the worst? You finally feel like you get somewhere, and then you realize you're only like, 2/3 of the way done.
Yeah.
So
little Sarah knows all of her inversions, but little Timmy does not. I'm writing your children's book for you.
So an inversion of a triad is that's root position. You start on the root. This is first inversion, and this is a second inversion, starting on the 5th.
Yeah, I was gonna say, please play taps.
So now you've got an entirely different set of triads to learn over all the different strings, how to do it on 3 strings, how to do it on 2 strings, how to cross the B string both ways. And I'll include some tab for this exercise because I have started on a book called Line Construction, The Building Blocks of Basic Jazz Lines. As hashtag not spawned by myself.
That sounds like a great children's book. I'm just saying.
It's not for children because it's not like adult oriented or anything. It just might have a lot of big words in it because I like to use big words to sound smart.
The conversation is getting weird. So this is an adult book. You'd find it in the adult section.
It's a book for people who understand big words, aka not me. But
love it.
And it's basically going to go through my process of like how I would like construct a line for jazz and grass. And yeah, like the major scale and all those positions and all the triads and inversions and yeah, like do you know your triads and do you know your inversions? Probably not good enough because I don't know mine good enough. I'm still learning. This book is half for me to actually like practice all of these things that I should know by now.
Yeah, I actually found that a lot when I was when I started writing the text lessons from my website. I just found that it was like a great way to organize my mind. You know, I wanted to write more and more because I was like, oh yeah, everything I know is like being written down now. And whenever I need to like check something, I can like basically check my own notes. Like, yeah, what did I say about that? And I go to my own website and look. Now you'll have a book to do that with.
You got any more building blocks?
Yeah, definitely, dude. Yeah, I think that another really good building block for a lot of people, I think, would be, and I hate saying this too because I don't want to be that guy, but kind of dealing with like the tension and release of a solo, of like there's moments with higher tension where like maybe they'll be more syncopated, or maybe they'll have more chromatic notes, or maybe they'll have like weird alterations and extensions to the chords, or like there's lots of ways that you can create that, right? And that's setting up to be resolved in some way, even if it's just for a second, for people to get their feet back on the ground. And I feel like one of the things that that I hear in like amateur solos, regardless of genre, is that disregard for that. Like for instance, it's really obvious in like blues solos. If there is no arc to the solo, if it's just like this guy playing blues licks, ad nauseum, just, for 5 minutes.
I call those blues non sequiturs. And I played with a guy who played nothing but blues non sequiturs, including like right in the middle of this original band that I play in that does stuff in the style of like 90s alternative rock. So like it was a song.
Hit you with that blues lick.
And then you just hear like, while the lady is singing.
Yeah, not the time for it.
Yeah, well, the line I'm looking for is more like... something like that. Yeah, continue.
Yeah, there's just a way to like play to the situation, or play to the like once again, man, hate using these words, but like the story that's being told in the chord changes, because chord changes are built to like, to be interesting, they have to have attention and release. There has to be some kind of movement that continues through it, and if you don't honor that in how your solo is phrased or articulated, or in your no choice, or whatever it happens to be, right, you don't necessarily play a very good solo.
Yeah.
It's not even all about solos. Like, it's just like writing lead parts or anything, right? Like, that's just how you have to create a tune, even a vocal melody, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And to give like sort of a jazz perspective on this, take like a chord going to another chord, like D minor 7 to G7. Let's just stay in the key of C for the time being. Like, just common resolutions between those two chords. Like, that's a good resolution. That's a good resolution. Or you could do all sorts of different things to resolve to that chord. You can use enclosures. And I encourage you to like just check out like a 1-6-2-5 in the key of C. I apologize for not tuning my guitar before the podcast, but I'm not going to fix it now. So hashtag sorry, not sorry. Take all the chords in a 1-6-2-5 in C, and like look at what's happening between chords. Like, how can I resolve D minor to G7? How can I resolve G7 to C major? How can I resolve C major to A7? And how can I resolve A7 to D minor? That's one of my favorite ways to resolve A to D. sharp 5 on A7 to 9 of D. There it is. I can play sometimes.
Yeah, totally. Why don't you hit us with one more, man?
All right. We've been talking a lot about harmony and like technical facility, so I'll just give a little shout out to my homeboy, Mr. Rhythm. Get your rhythm like in check. Make sure you can play like with a metronome, and that's super important. But one way to build off that is to, you got a metronome. You could have that metronome be on 2 and 4, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. You could have that metronome click on every third beat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. I'm not a human metronome. I never claimed to be, but click, click, click. You get the idea. You do all sorts of things like, dotted eighth notes, have the metronome click on 1 of every second bar, 1 of every fourth bar. You can practice syncopations like ba-da-ba-ba. It's a real funky one. You hear that all the time. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba-da. Justin Timberlake suit and tie. Use a metronome and start from just playing quarter notes along with the metronome, and then start using the metronome to play like against, and not as a tool like a crutch, but as sort of something to measure your own time against and something to develop your own time with, because you're not always going to get to have a metronome, but you can use a metronome to receive your own time, and you always get to have your own time.
Yeah, I think that you're kind of hitting on what I was going to say about the metronome, is that a lot of times when people play with the metronome, in their practice, it's like the metronome is a separate entity away from them. And it doesn't work like that. You can't play it like that. And I hate listening to people play with a metronome like that, where like they're always just slightly before or slightly after, or maybe even they get completely away from the metronome. They're speeding up or slowing down, and they'll go for like 3 measures before they notice. That's not the kind of practice you want to do. You really want to be like internalizing that rhythm and subdividing in your head and making sure that you are becoming one with the metronome. I tell my students that I want the click to disappear beneath the notes you're playing, right? If you're playing on the beat, I want that, not even to be able to hear the metronome because you're so, just locked into right where it is. And I think that maybe that's why a lot of people feel like dismayed by the idea of a metronome in their personal practice. So, there's another really good example. Sometimes I have students who have trouble with metronomes because right when they're about to play, they don't even take time to like hear and feel the metronome. And I think maybe some of it has to do it with me too, because when a metronome is playing, I don't really have to think about it. My mind is already like aligned to this metronome, even if I'm talking and doing something else. So I can just pop in and out to give my examples. But when they play, maybe it would be, a better idea. And I tell them this, listen to that metronome for like 2 measures. Like get your whole body aligned, start tapping your foot, start, subdividing in your head, doing 8th notes or whatever it is you need to do. So that way you're ready to go. And, oh man, it's amazing. It's amazing the hard work that we kind of take for granted, doing music when we were young, and no matter what kind of music we were doing, just getting a sense of time instilled in us. There's lots of people out there that are working really hard just for that part of music, and I applaud them for being willing to do that.
I spent, when I was 17, 18 years old, for about 3 months, 4 hours a day with a metronome. And I still feel like I'm going to need 2 more of those sessions in my life to get my time to where I want it to be.
Yeah.
But the metronome, like if you have a good one, like if your phone isn't, low on RAM, or you got one with good quartz in it, the metronome will expose you for what you are and where your time is. And it will also, again, if you have a good one, it will never lie to you. So the metronome is my best friend because it doesn't lie to me. Unless the battery's running out, and then he gets a little sleepy by and starts slowing down.
Yeah, the metronome thing is a pretty huge deal. Metronome, humble brag. One time I was in a studio, and we were about to track a new song, and we had just set the metronome to the speed we liked, and the engineer, wanted to test my guitar real quick, the mic placement, whatever. He asked me to play a little bit, and I played the song, and while I was playing, he turned on the metronome, and I was right with it. Just like incredible. Like I had already been listening to it, and I was like, oh, man, this is my coolest moment, and like no one's here to appreciate it.
Want to hear about my coolest moment that nobody was here to appreciate?
Yeah, does it involve a bottle flip?
Almost. I was opening my freezer to get a Hot Pocket, and I set my coffee like too far off the edge, like my coffee can. And I was holding a plate, and I opened the freezer, and the coffee can falls, and I just move my plate slightly, and it lands face up on my plate, and nobody was home, and I got really sad about it because it was so cool. It was the coolest thing I'd ever done.
You just ate your victory Hot Pocket alone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I think mine's a little bit cooler than you having impeccable time. Just saying.
Yeah, that's true. Mine didn't even have a Hot Pocket in it, so I'm with you. Yeah. Yeah, I should have added that to the end of my story. And then like a couple months later, maybe for some reason I had a Hot Pocket. That really ties up all the loose ends. Any questions you might have, that answers them. Oh man, I think on that note, I think it's time to wrap it up.
Real quick.
Oh yeah,
just for me. What am I working on? I'm working on my book. That's it.
Oh well, I mean, well done. Can't wait to read your book. Man, what am I working on? I know I've said these a lot, but I'm definitely still working on my website. It's been a crazy ordeal. I'm not going to bore you with any of the specifics, but yeah, really just trying to get that thing done. I really want to get that thing out there. Lyman's seen it now. You've actually experienced the website.
I bought something for $0.
Yeah, that's right. If you're a real internet sleuth, you can hunt down the test website and you can buy something.
Did you get me signing up for the email newsletter?
Ooh, I'm not sure that's set up.
Oh,
I'm not sure I saw that. But thanks for doing that at least, so that I remember that I have to do that now. There's so many things I have to do.
Something cool. I just ordered my Canon Rebel T6 camera, so my Jazz and Grass videos aren't going to look like as much garbage compared to Marcel's anymore. It'll still probably look a little bit garbagey, but way less garbagey than they are right now.
Yeah, that sounds like a nice camera. So in Terminator, that was the T1. This is the T6. So
yeah,
just like a super nice like Android.
It's like Arnold Schwarzenegger times 6.
Like an Android? I'm holding up my phone.
I'm looking for a picture of Data. I can't find one.
Love it.
But yeah, I think that's a podcast. We should tell people where we are.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Hey, everyone, my name's Marcel. You can find all of my stuff just by looking around for Lessons with Marcel. So you can find me on Twitter if you want to read my tweets about Dungeons & Dragons. You can find me on Instagram if you want to see some dopey pictures. And you can find me on Facebook if you want to see reposts of my YouTube videos, which is the main reason most people follow me, is on YouTube, Lessons with Marcel. I do guitar lessons every single week on Wednesday. Yeah, you can also check out my website, lessonswithmarcel.com. Like I said just a second ago, big update to the website coming soon, but please go enjoy the old website while you can, because it will be goodbye forever soon.
Well, bye-bye. I'm Lyman Lipke. You can find me at lymanlipke.com, and that will lead you to my SoundCloud, where I release a lo-fi hip-hop, jazz-inspired type beat that I take a solo over twice every week. It'll lead you to this podcast, actually, so you can get trapped in an infinite loop.
Yeah, that's right.
And you can study with me there. It's got a contact page if you're interested in taking a lesson or two from me.
Yeah, man. Oh, I wanted to point out too that the music for the podcast, I'm not sure if you've ever said this, but it's from you. It's from your SoundCloud stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. What's the track called?
I have the names in the project file. I think these are both released. I think the intro is it's a tune called Equivalent Exchange, and the outro is a tune called Broccoli Lady. And yes, they are my lo-fi beats. I have not mentioned that 13 episodes in. I just sort of put them on the first episode and kept them in the project file.
Oh, that's wonderful. Anyway, well, the only other thing we got to mention is that you should follow us on Instagram. Our joint account is Jazz and Grass, if you haven't already followed us. New licks every single weekday, switching back and forth between bluegrass and jazz. I'm Grass, he's Jazz. It's great, I promise. Go check it out. It's wonderful. And if you want another podcast, right, there's a new one coming out every single Sunday, so watch out for that.
Yep, Sunday, sometimes Saturday, sometimes Monday. It all depends.
And if you want to get in touch, there's a number you can call. That number is
724-257-1046. That's 724-257-1046.
I was going to say that number again, right? In the middle. You beat me to it.
I think we're finding a rhythm.
Yeah, right. Thanks for listening. Yeah. Thanks for listening, everyone. I think this has been a good one. I like this one.
Yeah, I had fun today.
Well, yeah.